Hey everybody, I hope you're well. So I wanted to make a video today about one of my saxophone teachers who I've never made a video about, I've never mentioned on this YouTube channel, but he was still one of the most important saxophone teachers that I ever had. And I'm making a video about him because I found out over the weekend, I found out that he had passed in the middle of October. He died peacefully in a hospital outside the Philadelphia area. So the saxophone teacher, and I studied with him for 1 year. His name, Marshall Taylor. And if you're from the Philadelphia area, it's one of those if you know, you know. Marshall Taylor, iconic as a saxophonist, a classical saxophonist, but also played compositions, new music compositions, was really adventurous on the saxophone. Um, just an absolutely brilliant musician. Probably one of the people, uh, probably a musician that thought so deeply about music, maybe more deeply than just about any other musician that I've ever been in contact with. Like, he just exuded passion for music, all kinds of music. So Marshall was a saxophone professor at Temple University. And a little bit about Marshall in that he studied with Marcel Mule in Paris, and he also studied with Fred Hemke. So two, incredible heavyweights of the saxophone history and world. And Marshall Taylor was a heavyweight in the saxophone world. And I look back on my time studying with him. I studied with him for 1 year. Actually, I look back not all that fondly because of me, not because of him. I look back on it thinking how much I learned, but I look back on it with regret, thinking how much I could have learned if I could have just gotten out of my own way. So let me explain all of that. Hopefully, I'll do it briefly. So when I was at Temple University, I was a music education slash jazz concentration major. It's like a 5 year major. And part of that was you got 2 years of jazz lessons. And so my 2 years of jazz lessons were with the legendary Larry McKenna, who I've spoken about so much on this channel, and I can't speak about him enough. And then the other 2 years were supposed to be with Marshall Taylor. Well, I was a jazzer in college, and I thought I knew everything, and there was no way that I was going to take 2 years of classical saxophone. How is that going to help me? I'm a jazz player. I'm playing all this. I'm doing all these gigs. I don't need a classical saxophone teacher. I don't even like that music. This is my mindset. So I went to the administration, and somehow, I don't know why they listened to me, but somehow I made a case to get an extra year with Larry McKenna, which I'm really super thankful for. So I got 3 years with Larry and just 1 year with Marshall. So they agreed to that, and that's what happened. So, as time would have it, I finished my 3rd year with Larry, and I started my 4th year, and now here I am. No more jazz lessons with Larry, which I was heartbroken about. Although I saw him all the time still, but no more jazz lessons with Larry. Now I had to go take classical lessons with Marshall Taylor, who I didn't know. So I set up a lesson with Marshall September of whatever year that was, 1991, 92, something like that. I guess it was 90, well, whatever. And I go to the first lesson. I bring my alto saxophone because I had worked up, I don't know, a little bit of the Eccles Sonata. Now, even in high school, I was not a classical player. I mean, talk about perpetrating a fraud. Me just walking in with the Eccles Sonata, just even holding the music is a fraud. I couldn't play that thing. But anyway, I go to play it, and I sound terrible because I'm used to playing like lead alto in a big band. I'm playing on rock and roll gigs. I'm doing, loud alto stuff. So I get about 5 bars in, and Marshall stops me. And he says, what mouthpiece are you playing? And I said, well, it's a Peter Ponzel mouthpiece, 90. Now, I had been playing Dukoffs, metal Dukoffs, that Silverite metal Dukoff, the one that David Sanborn played. Because again, this was like the early 90s, late 80s. Of course, I was playing a Dukoff. Everybody played Dukoffs on alto. Everybody wanted to sound like David Sanborn. So anyway, I had purchased this Ponzel. I went up to New York to Manny's and I purchased this Ponzel. And this Ponzel was like a thin, streamline, like a thin profile mouthpiece, but it was made out of wood. It could peel paint. It was so bright, had such body to it. I mean, I could play so incredibly loud. Great for lead alto, great for rock and roll, not great for the Eccles Sonata. So when I told him the Ponzel and all of that, he said, oh, yeah, don't ever bring that back. And then he said, do you own a tenor? I said, yeah, I own a tenor. And he said, well, what's your setup on the tenor? A Dukoff 9 with number 4 reeds. He said, don't bring that either. Do you have a soprano? I said, yeah, I have a soprano. Thankfully, he didn't ask for my setup because I had a Yanagazawa 7 mouthpiece. I said, yeah, I have a soprano. He said, bring that next week. So now I'm just broken because here's 2 horns that I play all the time, alto, tenor. He told me don't bring them back ever. Bring the soprano. Okay. So, the next week I bring back the soprano. I have no music to play. I don't have any classical soprano sax music. I don't have anything. And so I took the horn out of the case and I said, Marshall, I don't have any music. And he said, okay, that's fine. Do you know Stella by Starlight? Okay, so now I'm shocked. And I was like, well, yeah, I know Stella by Starlight. He said, well, let's play that. So he sat down at the piano and kind of plunked his way through Stella by Starlight. He played piano a little bit, not like Larry McKenna. Larry would play piano on the lessons and sound fantastic, on piano. But Marshall asked me to play a jazz standard because he knew. He knew what he had in me. He knew I've got a jazz player. So what did he do? He met me where I was. I came in. He met me at Stella by Starlight. And so what did he do? I played it. I played it as a ballad on soprano. And from there he started with me working on sound and tone. He did all these Joe Allard exercises, top lip off, all this stuff. I'm looking at a mirror. There were 3 weeks in a row that I did nothing but play a B. 1 note for like an hour. 1 note. And it's, nope, not right. Nope, this isn't right. Keep going. Nope, that's not right. Here's different ways to think about it. 3 weeks. I was so frustrated. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I'm not playing any music. I don't know. I'm going to have a jury coming up. I don't have any music for this. What am I doing? He just kept on. Marshall kept on teaching me. And then I got glimpses, like little pointers to the stuff that Marshall was doing was actually working. I was in an ensemble and I was playing soprano. And we got done the tune, and the ensemble director, he was actually a piano professor there at Temple, was like, wow, your tone is so much better on soprano. Like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm studying with Marshall Taylor. He's like, well, Marshall is definitely telling you all the right stuff because your sound is way better. So now I'm thinking, wow, imagine that. Marshall Taylor, one of the greatest saxophone players that I've ever come in contact with, actually knows what he's doing. I was so resistant, though, because I kept thinking that this man is only a classical player. What is he going to teach me, a jazz player? What a moron I was. I mean, I still am, in a lot of extent, but at least I realized I was an idiot. I could have taken so much more from him if I would have bought into what he was trying to teach me. But I got better in spite of myself because Marshall was a great teacher. So I didn't end up playing classical saxophone stuff for that year. I did classical vocal repertoire. He worked on Fauré songs with me, some Schubert and Schumann Lieder. I would play it on soprano. We would talk about breathing. We would talk about embouchure and pitch and all of that. And really, at the end of the year, and as I look back, I was like, wow, I actually learned a lot. But I still had, as I got older, I had regret. I was like, man, I'm so stupid. Marshall was great. So I contacted Marshall years after college. and was like, Marshall, I'm so sorry. For that time, I wish I was more open to your teaching. I was just immature and all that. And Marshall was like, well, I didn't think it was a bad year. I thought we accomplished some stuff. So I asked him if I could take a lesson. And he was a caretaker of a farmhouse. So I went out to the farmhouse in Pennsylvania. It's beautiful, by the way. And he gave me like a 3-hour lesson. But in the beginning of it, he's like, well, you asked for a lesson. Like, what do you want to work on? I mean, you're a gigging musician. You sound wonderful playing jazz. Like, what do you want to work on? And I said, Marshall, I need you to teach me how to tongue. Like, I didn't really know. There were holes in my playing that I was finally realizing, and I was willing to accept the holes in my playing. And then I knew I need to get help. And who better than Marshall Taylor? Because he was a brilliant saxophonist, a brilliant musician. I just wish I had taken advantage more of his brilliance when I was at Temple. But, youth, immaturity. Can't stand myself. I look back and I think about it. But I did get better in spite of myself. Marshall was just a phenomenal teacher. So I was sad to hear of his passing because he was so incredibly influential for me as a teacher. I mean, as a saxophone player, but also as a teacher in the example of him meeting me where I was. He wasn't expecting me to be a classical saxophonist. He was trying to help me be a better musician. And that's what he was as a great teacher. He really helped me be a better musician. So I'm eternally grateful for that, for Marshall. And while I'm sad, I know where he is. So, I don't mourn his death in that way. I mourn it because I won't see him again. But Marshall Taylor, just an incredible musician, an incredible man who I wish I had taken advantage of his gifts when I was with him at Temple. But I wanted to honor him here. So, Marshall Taylor, thank you. And all right, there you go. Stay well, everyone.